and welcome to the Convex Conversation with me, broadcaster Helen Prospero. Today I'm somewhere very special, wild, beautiful and remote. A real haven of peace and tranquility, and I've been on quite a journey to get here. I've got wellies on and I've just paddled, or actually the truth is been paddled, 20 minutes up Clachan Sound in a canoe to a secluded hut on the remote Isle of Seil off the coast of Argyll in the Outer Hebrides, with the man putting this stunning part of Scotland on the international map. Coinneach Macleod, or the Hebridean Baker as he's known to millions of fans on TikTok, is taking the culinary world by storm, showcasing the delights he first watched his Aunt Belag bake when he was a little boy. The fisherman's son from a tiny village on the Isle of Lewis has become an unexpected social media sensation with more than 10 million views during lockdown. His short films featuring his Westie Shoras, showing him baking mouth-watering Scottish fare, interspersed with simple lessons in Gaelic and breathtaking snippets of life in the most amazing scenery. Matan tha, Coinneach.
Matin va, fáilte, Helen. How are you?
Oh, how did I do with that?
You did pretty well. I can tell you've been to the Hebrides before.
Well, I've been practicing on an internet video and I was trying to practice quietly on the canoe. I mean, what a commute we've just had. Will you describe it for us?
I think the most special thing from us is just the contrast of leaving the mainland and getting in a wee canoe that we hide under the bridge. We're like trolls, hiding our things under the bridge, and then just setting off and knowing that we're going to the most idyllic wee spot in the world, and you're seeing wildlife and beautiful birds going past us, and we're so lucky.
It's just breathtaking. The whole scenery blows my mind up here. It's just so gorgeous. Will you describe what it was like when we were canoeing up the Clachan Sound and the kind of views that we could see and all the slate around us too?
Yeah, so the Isle of Seil is part of the Slate Islands, as they were called, and probably every house in Scotland and some of America has got slate from this little quarry here that we've got a wee house in. But as we were canoeing up, we were seeing the islands of Mull and Kerrara, and even Kerrara Lighthouse we could see in front of us. So to be able to see so many of the Hebridean Islands, each one so different as well, we're so lucky, huh?
Are you sure that you want the rest of the world to know about this amazing place?
I was trying to book the ferry back to Lewis for the summer, and it's already really busy, and people were blaming me. I think I'm slightly to blame for this influx of visitors, but we can't wait. We're so proud of our islands. We can't wait for people to see them.
The thing that strikes me, having been once before to the Isle of Lewis, where you're from, and also to Harris, is that no 2 days the same, no 2 seasons the same, but no 2 hours the same. The colours are spectacular, and they change hour by hour, don't they?
They do. They say on the island, if you don't like the weather in the Hebrides, just wait about 20 minutes because you're going to get another type of weather in a wee while. But you are right. Our seasons are a wee bit different in time into maybe the rest of the British Isles. Our winter obviously lasts a bit longer. Our spring is more kind of end of April, May time. But I think spring has to be my favourite time of year on the island because we've come out of quite a dark winter. At the end of December, we're maybe only getting maybe 3-4 hours of daylight at that time of year. But as the clocks change at the end of March and suddenly the days start to get longer, it's so exciting knowing you've got those few months ahead of you.
So tell me the story. You come from a tiny village, more or less, in the middle of nowhere, with about 30 or so residents. How on earth did you become an internet sensation as the Hebridean Baker? Where did that come from?
I still pinch myself every day that this has happened. But yeah, I'm from a wee village called Crofting. Crofting is the old Gaelic for big cow. The next village is Coinneach, which is the old Gaelic for little cow.
How did I guess, eh?
So even growing up, I was very proud of being from the bigger of the two cows. But To be honest with you, I was sitting a couple of years ago with my Aunt Bella, who, as you said, taught me to bake when I was growing up. And she was just telling some stories about the villages, about my family, and stories about some of the bakes as well that she does. And I thought to myself, I want everybody to know about this. I really want people to know. And so from that, I thought, you know what? I'll just start making wee videos of me baking, but telling stories while I'm doing that. And slowly but surely, people started to enjoy them. And then more and more people came to watch them. And I think as of yesterday, 17.5 million people have watched the videos.
Extraordinary. On TikTok.
On TikTok, yeah. And since then, so many wonderful experiences have come my way, from my cookbook coming out and being with Holly and Phil on This Morning and Kirsty Allsop on her Christmas show. Amazing fun things and at the centre of it all, Helen, is that I'm able to promote and talk about the Hebrides, our culture, our identity, our language, and the fact that we are part of Scotland, we are part of Britain, but we are a wee bit different. And I really enjoy celebrating that.
So your videos really are a taste of you cooking absolutely delicious bakes. I'm looking at the most extraordinary looking carrot cake. This is the moment when you realise it's a shame it's not television, but there will be a photograph of this cake. And you've mixed it with talking a bit about Gaelic. That's how you pronounce it in Scotland, isn't it? Gaelic. And the stories behind that ancient language, but also showcasing the scenery. When I saw you on Holly and Phil, I think you were making Aunt Bellag's duff, which we'll also come on to in a minute. But you were cooking on the beach on an open fire.
Yes. I think just allowing others to see and to experience what is normal for us every day. And I think the thing that I'm most happy about is I haven't changed any of our lifestyle to make the videos, or I haven't changed anything we do. Luckily, my partner, Peter, loves eating cake. So the fact that I make cakes every day is completely normal, you know? And the fact that we're out in a canoe with Shorus or swimming or climbing a mountain, that's just us. That's what we love doing. And the fact that folk have enjoyed watching us just have our normal lives has been fantastic.
It's been absolutely amazing, I think, for you. You wrote a lovely piece. I think your writing's really beautiful and very eloquent, and you wrote a great descriptive piece in Reader's Digest, and you were describing your memories of being a little boy watching Aunt Bella pulling out packets of suet and flour and fruit. Just give us a sense of what you remember from when you were little, of her cooking up some delicious Scottish fare.
Yeah, on the islands, you couldn't pop to the shop for a treat. The nearest shop was in Stornoway, which, because of our roads at the time, was about an hour and a half journey away. So going to Stornoway even was a bit of an adventure. It was like going to Las Vegas for us when we were growing up, never mind getting to the mainland. And so if we wanted a treat or something special, well, you had to bake it or make it yourselves. And my Aunt Bella, it's my dad's sister, and she is just a wonderful baker. My mum was a great baker too, but I used to sneak over to the next village quite a lot to see my aunt bake as well. And very traditional recipes, always using a griddle for her pancakes and scones, but probably the most traditional or well-known bake on our islands is called a duff. And on the mainland, they call it clooty dumpling. So it's a boiled fruit cake, which doesn't make it sound that fancy. And it's not fancy. It's not fancy dishes, but it is delicious. And my aunt's is just the best on the island, to the point my brother had it as his wedding cake on his wedding day. She always had a secret ingredient that she never told anybody. And she was telling me that she'd been making it the same way for 80 years. She's 93 now, and her husband's 94. if I'm that sprightly at 53, never mind 93, laughs and bakes every day. Her husband Murdo still out fishing, has his own garden. Inspiring, really inspiring.
And she's in the book, isn't she?
She's
There's a
in the
beautiful
book.
photograph in the book. How does she feel about, well, seeing herself in your cookery book, but this wee lad who's grown into quite a strapping man now at 6'3", 6'4", I'm guessing, something like that. How does she feel about the fact that you're on national television, you've got a gorgeous cookery book out?
It just makes her laugh. I think she
Makes
just laughs all the time. I think one of my favorite things that happened actually was I got a letter that just was written. The address was Hebridean Baker, Isle of Lewis, Scotland.
That was from me.
Was it from you? And it arrived at my house on Lewis, and I opened it, and there was just another envelope inside, and it just said, "To Aunt Bellac." And one of my followers had loved seeing Aunt Bellac in the videos, and she appeared when we were on the BBC travel show with Adi Adipitan. We visited her that day, and she just wanted to write to her and say that she had just retired recently and she was unsure of what her life would be like, and seeing somebody at that age still enjoying life so much and baking just inspired her so much. And I think that was the moment my aunt realised that unintentionally she had inspired folk through making these recipes and being in the book, which for me was when I hadn't opened the envelope, so when she read the letter to me, I felt inspired.
Oh, things like that are so heartwarming, aren't they? And what is it? What's the pleasure that you get out of baking and making these beautiful dishes that you put together so effortlessly?
Well, I think one thing is I love recipes with stories. And so I'd say my favourite thing to do when sitting here where we are at our table would be to sit here with lots of old books, sometimes not recipe books, just old Scottish books that might have a few wee stories about recipes in them. And so there's one I was reading recently. It is called A Scots Flummery. And even just the name, I was like, I have to make a Scots Flummery. And seemingly, Flora MacDonald was halfway through A Scots Flummery when she was arrested for helping Bonnie Prince Charlie, after the Battle of Culloden. And I was thinking to myself, because I've made it and it's delicious. And I thought, if you're on your way to prison, that's not a bad dessert to have as your last supper. So I love finding old traditional recipes, but then also taking more classic dishes and looking at the beautiful flavours we have, not just in the Hebrides, but in Scotland as a whole, and just adding a wee twist to some of those recipes and making them Scottish.
So what is a flummery? What does that taste like?
A flummery is sort of everything you would want from a Scottish dessert. You soak the oats in water for 2 days. You've got to plan ahead for us.
You can't just
think, do you know what, I'm having a Scots flummery. You have to do a wee bit of planning.
Do you get enough flummery when you're making it? I would be in a flummery, wouldn't I? Because I wouldn't have put the forward planning in.
Exactly. So you're soaking your oats for a couple of days to get that kind of starchy water. And then you mix in the beautiful flavours of course, whiskey and cream. And you just get this light, kind of near kind of syllabub. And you put orange zest through it as well. It's delicious.
My mouth's watering already. I love the stories. I love the folklore. And earlier today, when we were getting into the canoe, actually, you did make me laugh because we were getting into the canoe and you said, we might get a little bit stuck, so we might have to get out and push at some point. And I could see the cold, icy waters of the Clachan. I was like, oh, this will be interesting.
We did pretty well, though.
We
managed.
Well because we didn't tip up, did we?
We didn't
have to have a paddle, although you'd already been for a swim before I arrived this morning. I'm glad.
It's a good way to wake up.
I know. I'm just half wondering whether you're going to throw me in there at the end of this. And actually, we're so warm sitting in your beautiful little hut. with the Arga on. I've got so many layers on because I thought I was going to be freezing and my cheeks are burning. But as we got to, I'm going to see if I can remember this, the Taen Trush. Okay. That's something to do with trousers and kilts, isn't it? Tell us wee story.
There is a story. I'm not sure how true it is, but
that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, does it?
No.
So there was a time when kilt wearing on the mainland of Scotland was banned. I won't say he was to blame for that.
No, you're not looking my way, I hope. I like a kilt.
So the story goes that where the pub is now, the Tay, which is the Gaelic for a house, the house of trousers, was where the men used to take their kilts off and change into their trousers before they went over Clachan Bridge onto the mainland. So I don't know how true that story is, but I kind of like it.
I like it. What about the phrase, Donald, where's your trousers? Do you think that comes from those days?
I think
maybe?
It might be. Exactly.
This is my second time, as we talked about when we just went on a little mini hike around your gorgeous hut in the Outer Hebrides. I went to the Isle of Lewis, where you're from, and also to Harris last year, and kind of really, if I'm honest, absolutely fell in love with its rugged beauty and the white beaches and the turquoise waters that look like the Caribbean, but definitely there's a nip on your toes. I did go for a paddle. And the wildlife and incredible food. I can see why you're so proud of where you come from. But the one thing that I didn't really realise, I think, is that you've got the wild Atlantic larder in terms of incredible distilleries, amazing seafood, brilliant natural ingredients. It's so much more than just what you see with your eyes, isn't it? It's a real taste treat.
You're absolutely right. And I think there's maybe something that we talk about now where it's always been there. It's been normal for us to have salmon and beautiful prawns and venison and great lamb. We've never had to think about it. Anything that we grow or catch is for the family. We never thought about selling it or promoting it before. But now I see folk on the islands, we're sort of creating maybe a more modern Hebrides where we are proud of our islands more. Before, I think we kind of hid it away. People didn't know about us and we were seen as a wee bit backward. Even I remember moving to the mainland the first time and my accent is a wee bit different to the rest of Scotland and certainly Glasgow. And there's always a part of a country where the accent is seen as a wee bit country bumpkin, you know? And the Hebrides was seen that way, as if we were a wee bit backward or slow. But I think now the islands and the people are being celebrated, and I'm so proud of that. And you're right, the produce of the islands is very much part of that. And we've got now beautiful restaurants that are promoting our produce, and that feels very, very special. And I'm pleased to be part of that.
I think as well, something that we're probably all discovering a lot more, particularly over the last couple of years that everybody's been through, is the importance of being out in nature, being at one with nature, how it makes you feel when you're out in the fresh air, looking at bird life and trees and beautiful water. And I guess just naturally and organically from when you grew up, you've lived at one with nature. And perhaps where I live in a city in the heart of Shepherd's Bush, which I love, we don't get that on a daily basis. And I think people are yearning for that more. And I think that's part of it too. I think we need to get out and experience that beautiful fresh air and wildness. I
think you're right, Helen. And I think maybe that is a part of why the Hebridean Baker storyline has resonated with a lot of people, is they've looked at our lives, and it is just our lives, just simply doing the things we enjoy doing. And unintentionally, it's become aspirational for folk to think, right, get up in the morning, run down to the shoreline, go for a swim, run back, chop the wood for the aga, and that's the start of just a normal day, going for a walk with a dog in the hills. And so, as I said, unintentionally, I think the Hebridean lifestyle has become aspirational for a lot of folks, and we're very proud of that.
And sustainable as well. When we've looked around the hut today, you've got solar panels, you have the most amazing wooden little hot tub that you have a fire to heat the water for. everything feels sustainable. You're using what the land offers and not taking anything away.
Absolutely.
And we're much more aware of that now, aren't we?
I think we are, and it's something that you need to make yourself more conscious of when you're not familiar with your land. But it's something that, as you say, we've grown up with, that you can't just run to the shops for a quick extra piece of clothing or food or something and make and do. And I know that even if we were here, not being able to go to a shop for 5 days, I know I can make something out of that cupboard. I'll find something in that cupboard and I'll make a great meal out of it, no problem.
If I was going to be stuck in a hut with anybody for 5 days and needed a meal, I think I'm absolutely in the right place. I'm thinking later of the lasagna that you've made, which is going to be fantastic. But there you are, a boy growing up in a very small place, in a very quiet place, but you've lived in London, and reading in the book, because I feel like I'm a massive advert for your book, but I loved all the stories, and I loved your story that when you were living in London, if you were aching for a bit of the Outer Hebrides, you'd go to the British Museum, which I think I'm a bit of a geek actually, because it's one of my favourite places in the world. Yeah. And viewing what you viewed in the British Museum, that's one of my favourite exhibits. Tell us more.
Well, I just say I lived in London, and there was many times where I wanted to maybe speak Gaelic to somebody or hear somebody talking about my islands. And we're so lucky that we have the Lewis chessmen, and they can be seen at the British Museum. And the Lewis chessmen are a set of carved ivory pieces, and they were found on a beach on the west coast by a man who was walking his cows along the beach one day.
As you do.
As you do.
I'm from Cleethorpes. We don't walk cows there. We walk donkeys. No, we walk donkeys, but not cows.
And he thought, oh, they're nice. They were in a box. And
they're in a box?
They were in a box, and he displayed them in his cowshed for a few years. And then he sold them for £30. And they were sold eventually to the British Museum, probably for a wee bit more. I know one of them was recently sold. One of the pieces was sold for $1 million recently. That was found in a drawer. But basically, they were a Viking hoard, a Viking treasure, because the Hebrides were part of the Viking kingdom of Man for 400 years. And a real stopping-off point. There's some amazing stories. If you look at the DNA of Icelandic women, it is the identical DNA of Hebridean women, because Iceland was simply populated by Viking men who were heading down to the Hebrides, picked up some good-looking women, and headed over to Iceland. So this farmer found the chess pieces and eventually realised the uniqueness of them. And so I used to just go and stand there and hear people talking about saying things like, oh, but the Hebrides, they don't really exist. Or thinking they were part of Game of Thrones. Or I remember one man telling me that him and his jazz band went there to play in Stornoway in the 1960s, and what an experience was. So just standing by the chessmen at the British Museum, I heard the best stories.
And did you enjoy the hustle and bustle and the craziness of London, or did you find it a big, dirty, noisy city like my young son does?
Well, I'm a great believer in contrast in life. I really do believe that it's really good for you to have different experiences in life. Peter, my partner, said, well, actually very early on when we met, told me an amazing thing that I absolutely believe. He said, your job in life or your goal in life shouldn't be to be happy every day, because you're going to be disappointed sometimes, because life, you can't be happy every day. But he said, but if you can be fulfilled every day, then that will make you happy. If at the end of each day you've done something, a wee adventure, or baked something new, or planned a trip, or something that you've done that fulfills you. And I really believe that now, that's my goal in life. And a bit like my Aunt Bellac at 93, still thinking, I'm going to go to church, or I'm going to, bake something today, or see what my husband Murdo's growing in the garden. What a fulfilling life, and that's my goal.
I agree with you there. My little moment every day is sitting outside my favourite little coffee shop. And I mean, come rain or shine, there's a little shelter. So even when it's absolutely pouring with rain, they think I'm crazy because I sit outside with my little paper cup and my diary and my notebook and plan my day. And that's my little moment every day that I really enjoy. And I would imagine living somewhere like this and in Lewis every day, whether it be the swim that you have or the walk on the beach with your dog or popping something in the oven, that's a very nice way to think of life. And you talk about wee adventures, but when you were a wee lad, you had lots of wee adventures and you had definitely an incredible imagination. Tell me about going off and in your little boat in search of Viking treasure.
Well, in the village of Cremor, we have a broch. A broch it's basically like a lookout point for the Vikings, because you can imagine how scary it would be if you were just pottering around in the 12th century, looking after your potatoes and your one cow, and then suddenly over the hill comes 300 Vikings not looking that friendly. Actually, it sort of comes from, I'm sure you know the concept of first footing. So one of the Scottish traditions at Hogmanay at New Year is it's good luck if a tall, dark, handsome man comes to your door after midnight with a bottle of whiskey. I mean, I think that's good luck at any night of the year. I think you have to.
I think my luck was totally in if that happened to me. That's never happened, sadly. There's still time, though.
There's still time. But they intentionally say tall, dark-haired man, because if a tall, blonde-haired man knocked on your door, it's probably not good news, because he's probably going to be doing some pillaging and marauding. But I had a wee rowing boat when I was a kid, and I would row out to the broch, and always convinced I was going to find some treasure or something that the Vikings had left behind. Usually I'd just come home with some wild brambles, some blackberries to make a cake with my mum, but I always hoped I would find something. But yeah, great adventures growing up. Some intentional, some, sometimes the Queen would come past and make some stories too. But you might have to read the book to find out that story.
Oh, I've still got that one to look forward to. And you call yourself a bit of a bearded Viking baker. I'm going to get that all wrong. Come on, you tell me what you call yourself.
What was it again?
The beardy
baking.
The beardy baking Viking. That's
from the
right,
Hebrides.
isn't it? From the Hebrides.
Do you know what it came from, actually? I was, again, so many fun things have happened, but I was doing a Serbian travel show a few months back, and luckily they sent it to me with subtitles when it was on Serbian television. And when they said who they were visiting, they called me the most Scottish Scotsman in Scotland. And then when I told the stories about the Vikings, that's where that came from as well. So I think I'm happy with those wee titles.
I think so. What's been the most exciting part of this kind of unintentional newfound fame? Which shows have you enjoyed doing most?
Well, I think that the first thing is, because it happened during a time when we were not seeing many folk. We were in lockdown, and yes, I could see my videos getting all these millions of views and folk saying all the nice things. But it wasn't really until I started being able to leave my home and walk around the towns, and people would say, "You're the Hebridean Baker. I love what you do." And I don't know why, but hearing a real person say it was quite different to seeing it online. So I think the first thing was just experiencing that people so enjoyed the videos that I was making. But you're right, I think spending an afternoon with Kirsty Alsop was quite good fun.
What did you do with her? I didn't see you on Kirsty's show.
So it was her Christmas show, and so we were making some festive treats, and we had a challenge where we were making my Hebridean Hogmanay cocktail. Now, I love a smooth whiskey, so I like a Jura whiskey or a Highland Park, where Kirsty loves a peaty whiskey. And Helen, I know you quite like a peaty whiskey too.
I like a peaty. I like Bunnahabhain, I like.
So I think she was on the Bunnahabhain. She was making a cocktail with Bunnahabhain. I was making a cocktail with Jura, and we were testing which one was the best. And in the end, she even admitted herself she liked mine the best.
Did she?
And we had a great afternoon. So what an experience to meet characters like that. And one thing I would say, which is coming up in a few weeks, which another pinch me moment, is The book's just about to be released in America, and I'm off for book tour of America from Boston to Chicago to Dallas to LA to Seattle. And from a wee boy in the Outer Hebrides to think this has happened, I'm really excited.
You are the most amazing advert for it, and the book is a real treat. And I don't say this lightly, it's sitting on my coffee table and I keep dipping back in because you are a magnificent storyteller as well. So it's far more than a cookery book. And I think on the front you actually say it's some wee stories from the Highlands or wee tales from the Highlands. So I love all of that too. But I also like the simplicity of what you cook. What I get frustrated about sometimes when I decide I'm going to have a baking day is you need 25 ingredients and you haven't got everything, but you don't use that many ingredients. And I love the fact you've got the twist of things like you're partial to a wee dram of whiskey in your cooking, aren't you? And
there is always a wee twist, for sure. And whiskey tends to be a twist quite often. But looking at what is maybe traditional Scottish ingredients, like our wonderful oats, our whiskey, our marmalades, and all those things, and our berries, as I said, brambles. When we were coming on our canoe, I was showing you the gorse bushes that we make pina coladas out of the flowers. So we always, in the book, try and make it simple recipes, simple ingredients, and something that you would just want to make when your auntie or your best pal was coming round for the afternoon. And again, one of the big things when I started on TikTok, which is a great fun platform, but a lot of the other bakers were trying to make the biggest cake or the most tiers. And I would go, wow, that's amazing and what a skill. But I thought, I'm never going to make that. There's only two of us and Shoris, the dog. We can't eat that much cake. So intentionally, I make wee bakes that is enough for 2 or 3 people. And I got a lot of kind of positive feedback about that it was nice that you can make a new cake every day.
you see, you're so trendy because I've never been on TikTok. Do you edit the little videos and then put them up? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it is. I was really inspired by the creativity. Once you get past the lip syncing and dancing, it's the most educational platform. My catnip is Midwestern American women who upcycle furniture. That's why I could spend my whole afternoon watching these videos. But there's people that are just so skilled and inspiring in what they do. And it just inspired me to do something similar. And I'm so humbled that it's resonated with so many people.
It has. And this isn't your day job, is it?
No, it isn't, but I'm so lucky I can love both. I know a lot of people maybe aspire to do something a wee bit different because they've got the drudgery of 9 to 5 in an office, but I'm lucky that I love my work, but my passion of promoting the islands and what a dream. I won't call it a job because that makes it sound like it's hard work.
You're pleased that it isn't a job, really, because maybe that would take away some of the pleasure of what you're doing.
Yeah, the fact that a few weeks ago, the Outer Hebrides Tourist Board got in touch to say would I do to say would I do the voiceovers of their new campaigns, and I was like, amazing. And so when I'm watching TV or something, and suddenly I'm like, oh, that's my voice on that video, on that advert. It just makes me smile. So the fact that I've been able to say yes to so many fun things, and again going back to the story of being fulfilled every day.
Now, what's the word you use? That in Sweden there's a word, Hygge, but you have your own word for that feeling of slowing down and satisfaction with every day, beginning with a B, I seem to remember.
Beginning with a B. Yeah, I was doing an interview with Danish radio, and we were talking about Hygge, and they said, is there a Gaelic version for the word? And I said, well, the closest word we would use is blas. And blas is the Gaelic word for warmth and contentment. And there's a beautiful saying in Gaelic, Berry blas luas. And it sort of means there's a time for everything. Just slow down, enjoy what you do, and as we're doing right now, sit with a cuppa, look out the window and enjoy the Hebrides.
The Gaelic is beautiful. Just try and teach me to say that.
So, Berry Blas.
Berry Blas.
Luas.
Luas.
Berry Blas Luas.
I love that. Do you think it's time to get a knife out and cut a little cake?
We've both been looking at this cake the whole last 40 minutes.
We have, haven't we? Just describe it for me, and what have you made it with?
Well, we still had some winter carrots in our wee plot there, so I needed to use them. So it's quite a classic carrot cake, but I always like to say it's a Hebridean carrot cake because of where the carrots came from. But I love cardamom. I really do look north to Scandinavia for a lot of flavours as well, and cardamom comes up a lot in Scandinavian recipes. So it's a carrot and cardamom cake, and it's got pistachios and a lovely frosting on top. Because it's so warm in here, it's now lovingly drooling over the side of the cake, and it's making it even more tempting.
I know, but we're nearly at the end now. Just actually, you mentioned Scandinavia there. You did Old Icelandic Studies at university, didn't you?
I did. I've got to be honest with you, Helen, not the handiest of degrees. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't the handiest of degrees. I haven't used it too much since. But again, it just felt right to do it, knowing that many of my ancestors moved to the island of Iceland. I just wanted to learn more about it. My name, Coinneach, and this is a good reason for it to be a podcast, because I won't know if you're laughing or not, but Coinneach is the Old Gaelic for handsome.
Is it?
And
I'm laughing.
And I'm sure I probably did peak when I was like 1 or 2 days old. You know, my mother must have gone, oh, he's definitely a Coinneach. It's kind of gone downhill since then. And the surname Mac, many of your listeners will know, is the Gaelic for son. And Ljot or Ljotar was the last king of Man, so the Nordic kingdom, when the Hebrides were part of Norway. But Ljotar is also the Old Norse word for ugly father.
Oh.
And so technically my name means handsome son of the ugly father. Now, my father wasn't the bros man. He was only 5'7". I luckily got all my height from my mother. But it's a wee bit harsh to call him the ugly father.
That is a wee bit harsh, isn't it? And just finally, are we allowed to know what your day job is? Because it's quite fascinating, isn't it? You've just come back from Africa.
Yeah, so I'm so lucky that I have really nearly my dream job as well, where I grew up loving sport and always thinking I was going to be a great footballer. I think my football career peaked at 12, and I didn't really go much further than that. But what I do now is I work in developing countries, mostly in Africa, and I help them put structure and professionalise the sport and work with the governments there to show how football can work in societal cohesion. So when there was the troubles in Mozambique a few months ago, we went there and worked together with the communities and show that football can make a difference, because when you're on the pitch together, it doesn't matter where, what race, what colour, what sexuality, whatever you have, you're just going to be playing together. And it's so rewarding to do that. And again, going back to contrast, knowing that I'm maybe in a wee town in Mozambique one week, then back climbing the hills of the Hebrides the next, is pretty special.
Do you know, I think you've got life absolutely sorted, and it's a great thrill to be here. Shall we have, while we're still recording, shall I have a little taste of cake?
I think we need to.
Shall we? Okay.
Okay. I don't have the best knife, but look how soft that is. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
It made me nervous when we went for our walk that you put it outside. I had visions of coming back and squirrels or deers that would have eaten it. But luckily it's all intact, isn't it?
It is.
And I think the heat of the agar and the way it's melted that frosting
This
looks
is going to be,
beautiful.
there will just be rustic here. You're just going to grab that big piece in your hands.
Am I? This one on the end? Oops. Okay.
See?
That's okay. We've got frosting on
We've
the
got frosting
sound
everywhere.
kit, but who cares, hey? Wow, here goes.
So here it goes.
Oh my goodness. Just has with a mouthful of carrot cake. That's absolutely delicious.
Okay, that is good.
The cardamom, I can taste the cardamom. Your old carrots are amazing. What's in the frosting?
We've got lime zest and just a classic kind of cream cheese frosting. Well, that's not bad.
That's a good job it's not television. I've got it absolutely everywhere. It's all
It's
over my fingers.
The beardy bacon Viking. It's all over the beard.
It's good, but we will take a picture of this and put it on our socials. And maybe we could go and do on the slate on the banks of the Clachan. Maybe we'll make my first TikTok. That would be exciting, wouldn't it? Let's do that. Reluctantly, it's time to say, oh God, I'm so nervous now. Mashinlet.
Marshinlet.
Mashinlet. And with a full tummy. And try not to sink the canoe on the way back. We've got to canoe back, haven't we? It's been a really magical experience coming to meet you in your gorgeous little hut here on the Isle of Seil. And I hope perhaps one day that I can get to meet Aunt Beleg and taste her duff.
I really hope so too. Helen, it's been an absolute pleasure. My only sadness is that you're not staying over the night for a ceilidh and a few drams.
Well, I can. It's not too late, just saying. You've been listening to Coinneach Macleod, aka the Hebridean Baker, or as he calls himself from time to time, the beardy baking Viking, and finding out how a fisherman's son from Lewis has become a TikTok sensation. Championing the stunning Outer Hebrides he's proud to call home. This has been such a fun podcast to record. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple and Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to yours. I'll be back next week, minus canoe and wellies. See you then. Mashin Plat.